Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Lessons from the Universe with Jennifer Hall. I look forward to sharing my channeled message with you today, and if you love it, please like, share, review, and subscribe. I've known for, a while that eventually I would address this topic. I tried to put it off, but as the universe would have it, I'm just not allowed to do such things. Even though I hadn't recorded it, I went ahead and let everybody know that my topic for this week would be death. That way I wouldn't get to, chicken out. It's funny that I would even think of chickening out. I mean, I would only do that for some of you because I don't think that death is scary. I don't even really think that it's sad. And most of you know that my son loves my podcast. And so there are times that there are things I'm going to say I like to warn him about. And when I told him that this week would be about death, I told him that he would find it comforting. And I believe that you will too. It's important to understand that I talk to a lot of people at every stage of grief. I talk to people while their loved one is dying. I talk to people who has literally just lost someone, to every kind of thing you can imagine, right? Everything from death of old age to childhood cancer to suicide. I have no lack of experience both in talking to people about it, talking to spirit about it, and even my own personal experiences. I didn't realize I was going to bring this up today, but here we go. I was in high school, and within the first several months, 5 of my friends died. Not together, mind you, in different things. Car wreck, suicide. Each was different. Each was separate. And somehow, it appeared at least that I was the only person that was friends with each of them, with all 5 of them. And I remember my father, who is, old to have a kid my age. Of course, my mother being very young to have a kid my age. My father, he just looked at me and he said, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say to you because I've never experienced anything like this. Because it was like just as soon as it seemed like there was a way to move on, there was someone else. And it somehow just now, recording this today, hit me that that was one of the things that happened in my world to prepare me. Now, to be clear, they didn't pass for me. That's not how it works. In fact, there is nothing that the living can do or not do to make someone die or to make someone live. No one can love us enough to stay here. That's not how it works. This life thing, this school, this education is much bigger than just the human relationships that we have here. Now, I know you're aware that I believe these relationships are the highest point in our education, but it's not why we're here, why we stay, or why we leave. So any of you that are holding in you somewhere this concept, this idea, this belief, this fear that maybe you could have just said something, maybe you should have not said something, let all of that go. That's not real. And while we're at it, those of you that are wishing you had said that one last thing, or that you hadn't been in a fight with them when they died, or whatever that thing is, know that that's gone. The second that this flesh shoot drops away, the second that the flesh is separated from the spirit, there is complete clarity. And they know. They know what your intentions were. They know what you wished you'd said. They know that they were assholes if they were being assholes. They know all of these things. They know. And it doesn't matter what happened in the flesh, whether it was something you said or something they did. even the most horrendous human beings, their flesh drops and their spirit is pure, and they see. They see. So let's start first with what I call the hallway of doors. This is how I explain what human life and death is. Imagine that you are standing at one end of a very long hallway that is literally just lined with doors on both sides. Each door is closed. Occasionally there's one that is cracked open, and sometimes you can see that from far, far away. Each of us, from the moment we choose to come here, and for those of you who are just coming in now or missed the episode where I discussed this before, understand we choose to come here from the clarity of spirit. We choose the point at which we enter. We choose our family. We approve of our bodies. We come here with great intention. And then we proceed to walk steadily down this hallway of doors. And each door is an out. It is a way to leave. It is a way to, if not graduate, to transfer out, right? We're going to leave Old Miss and go to Auburn because we need a do-over, maybe. That doesn't happen that often, but it can, and we'll get back to that in a minute. So each of us is walking down this hallway of doors. You and I, each of you listening to this with me today, everyone in the universe, well, not the universe, on the human earth, okay, is walking down this hallway of doors. And we can walk out of a door at any point in time. However, we cannot walk out a door unless our spirit is ready for us to walk out a door. And when I say our spirit is ready, I mean that. Now, I know there is a plethora of ideas going through different people's heads. What about suicide? What about murder? What about when an airplane crashes or a bomb goes off? There are people who walk away from crazy shit all the time, every day. There are explosions that blow people to bits. And there is someone who walks away unscathed. There are planes that crash and individuals who survive. There are people who live through crazy things, crazy, insane things. And there are other people who go to sleep and don't wake up for no explainable reason. This is the hallway of doors. The spirit is either ready to go, it has either done what it came here to do, learned what it came here to do, and we cannot judge the value of that because not all of us come here for the same thing. So how dare any one of us say that that spirit didn't do what it came here to do? That's not fair. That's selfish. The spirit either did what it came here to do or has decided that it needs to transfer colleges. Now, this pretty much exclusively happens with a spirit who has, it's the only time I kind of think of spirit as egoic, a spirit that has chosen to come through into a body that either has suicidal depression or extreme addiction. When we are in spirit and we are choosing to come, we watch that little body grow inside of the mother and we decide if we're going to come or not. Be clear, our mothers don't do this to us. We do it to them. Suicidal depression is something where there's a break in the brain. I have talked to so many people and spirits about this topic, and I know that it is sensitive, but understand, no one can actually follow through with taking their own life unless something cracks. If you could see what I'm doing with my hands, it's like all of a sudden the connections just go and they don't match up anymore and the person just acts. And I get that it is unbelievably painful and completely not something within the realm of the understanding of someone who has nothing similar to that going on in their brain. But that is what happens. And even in that case, no matter what that individual has done to themselves, if the spirit wasn't ready to leave, the human would have failed. And that shit happens all the time. People fail all the time. They fail to take their own lives because their spirit says, no, you didn't try hard enough. We're going to keep trying. I'm not ready to give up. The spirit decides, not the human. Be clear. In the case of addiction, people don't OD unless their spirit says, fuck this, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's start over. Let's come back in a body that doesn't have this challenge. Let's try something different. And in that way, it is graduation. In every way. Good, bad, or indifferent. Death is graduation. It is freedom. It is something to be honored. I mean, be clear. Those of you who know me, you know how I feel about emotions. We must feel. If you need to grieve, grieve. Grieve as long as you need to grieve. But do not let it own you. Do not let it define you or become your main personality trait. That is not how we honor the dead. When you continue to endlessly, painfully mourn, what you are saying to your past loved one is that my love for you is so fragile. If I move forward with this life, it will go away. What they want from us, what they need, what they value, and what we need to be able to continue in this life school, we have to recognize that that love we have for them hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, it is stronger, it is more palpable, it is more available than it ever was when these flesh suits were in the way. We take that love for them and we hold it, this solid foundation from which to continue our lives, to grow, to love. When we move forward, what we're saying to them is my love for you is so powerful that it makes me more. Mourning takes as long as it does. But I will say that a lot of the limitation, a lot of the extent, the length that people require themselves to mourn is very much just encultured. There is this human cultured idea that we must mourn for a year. And I will say, I watch it all the time. I watch people hit that year point in their mourning. And this is true, even if it's not death, even, divorce or whatever. People hit this year and it's like something does shift. It's interesting. It's interesting. And it's okay to allow yourself to look forward to that year mark that is aligned with our humanness. And it is okay. It is an ingrained human belief. And, just be clear, it is a human belief. The deceased, our past loved ones, they have zero expectation for our mourning. The flesh suit drops. It doesn't matter what they said to us when they were living. That drops, that selfish, that fear, that whatever it is, it goes. And all they want is for us to live fully, to take complete advantage of this life school, to get as much out of this experience as we can. Years ago, when I very first started taking what I would call randoms, right? People who just found me on the internet and called. I had a woman walk in my door, and before she even sat down, I say to her, your husband wants you to fall in love again. She turned as red as a beet and was furious. It turns out that his dying words were, "Don't you ever let another man touch you." Let's be clear. I don't care if that was his dying words. That flesh suit drops and spirit is clear. And it says, go live and love. Go move forward. And in the same way, the ugly of terrible people drops too. And some of you may not like to hear this, but it is the truth. I saw a family, again, years ago. They came in, it was a mother and her daughters, and her husband was missing. And he was a terrible man. He had done horrible things to all of them, and now he was missing. And I could feel instantly that he was past. I could see where he was, and I told them. And we had a very long conversation, of course, as you can imagine, and they left. And a couple of weeks later, she calls me. And it turns out everything I had said was correct, and she wanted to come in and talk to me alone without her daughters. Of course, right? So she comes in and she sits down and she says to me, I want you to tell me every detail of how this man is burning in hell. I couldn't. He's not burning in hell. That's not a thing. Hell is what you experience on earth when you are that screwed up human being. His flesh died. The sickness of him died. The bad man was gone. And all that was left was the spirit that took a gamble on a body he could not control. And at first she was angry. But then she was relieved. There are no evil spirits. That's not real. It is how we explain. It is how religion explains, how we explain maybe even to children that bad things can happen, but it's not real, okay? And some of you are going to just intrinsically not want to hear me. I want to challenge you to hear me. And if you can't handle it, that's okay. Maybe I'm not for you. There are no evil spirits, only bad people. This is the truth. Now, side note, spirit might scare the fuck out of you if you're not paying attention. It is not beyond using the things that will scare you to hopefully wake you up and make you quit wasting this life. But it is never evil. It is never bad. That is not real. That is flesh. And it dies with the flesh. That person that you're afraid you'll see when you die. I've talked to people, they're so afraid of death, not because of what death is, but because they think they're going to see that horrific human being again. That's not real. The human being is gone. If anything, you'll see the spirit and you'll see that it's beautiful and it will heal you. There's nothing to be afraid of, beloved. The scariest, hardest thing that we do is be here. We come here to remember who we are because spirit is so perfect and everything's so perfect. And sometimes we want to remember how lucky we are. People do this in real life. I've seen affairs actually save marriages. Bad experiences at work actually make people realize that they've got a good gig, right? Sometimes we need to be reminded. Sometimes we need to see something that reminds us how lovely we are, how lovely our life is. Spirit is not beyond that. Sometimes it wants to remember what perfect is. And so we come here where this flesh suit gets in the way. And when we leave, it is graduation. And I say that we should celebrate that graduation with the utmost respect and patience because we are human and we feel. But we must remember our emotions do not own us. In spirit, it is not called sadness. It is called release. And it is beautiful because it is the source of our freedom. Address it, sit in it, soak in it, feel it. But remember, it is not something that possesses you. It is no more than an odor in the room. And odors fade. Try to recognize it. Feel it. I have been known to yell into the sky, I came here to feel, I'm fucking feeling. I get it. But do not let it define you because it is not the truth of who you are. It's hard. Some of you may know that I do weddings. I love doing weddings. But I also do funerals. And I did a funeral a few years ago that was very interesting. The man had been fighting cancer for 5 or 6 years, and I'd been talking to his wife that whole time. Sort of side note, it was a very interesting crowd because this guy was a very high-powered lawyer, but also a biker, motorcycle guy, right? And so half of the room is these like men in $1,000 suits, and the other half is, men in $1,000 biker leather, right? Very big crowd. I could feel the diverse emotions in the room. But the wife, she didn't mourn after he died. She finished mourning while he was living. I salute that. Why? Who says we have to go on mourning, right? She was distraught over this. She said, I'm afraid people will judge me. Who the fuck are people to judge us? This woman mourned for years. When her husband finally graduated, she got to level up too. Thank God for that. Thank the universe for the wisdom to grow, to move, to learn. There's a lot of reasons, a lot of excuses for us to give ourselves to suffer. The loss of a child being one of them. I talked to a number of people who've lost a child to overdose or suicide. But it's not always that. I have one lady I speak to regularly. She lost her young son. And he died of a disease that children get from their mothers in utero. That actually, side note, could be tested for. And I believe that part of this experience is for her to be an activist in that way. To talk to this woman and the thralls of her grief. And having young children of my own, it was painful, it was challenging. And yet that child touched so many lives. His years on this planet were rich and full. And once she got, ironically, if you believe in irony, past that year, we were able to have a very important conversation. I asked her an incredibly difficult question. I asked her how long she had known that he wasn't long for this world. And when she allowed herself to speak, she said since he was born. Since he was born, she had known. You don't want to believe these things, right? I didn't want to believe I was going to miscarry my first child, but I knew it. When people get past their grief, if they allow themselves, I have never seen it fail that they knew. They knew somewhere deep down. And I don't mean human fear. I don't mean that chatter in your brain. Everybody who's got like those human worries that you can feel inside your brain, don't go freaking out on me. That is not what I mean. It is different. It is different. That fear thought that you can feel inside that lump of meat in your head is different than this weird, calm, strange knowing that we have when it is the universe preparing us. That is a different feeling. My beloved, if you are suffering, I am sorry. And as your friend, I would sit with you and hold your hand and cry with you and own this human experience with you because it is valuable. Not only is it valuable to your own understanding of your own self, not only is it valuable because if you hold it in, it will cause dis-ease. It is valuable Because if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't touch you. Remember, it's not because of us. But if there wasn't something for us to learn and some way for us to grow, it wouldn't touch us. Either it wouldn't happen near to around us, or it somehow would miraculously not be so hard. That's another thing to address. I have people who say, why am I not upset? Why am I not hurt by this? It's just simply not yours. Not everything that happens is for us. And if it's not, we have a disjointedness from it. And then I have spiritual people who they feel guilty because they do feel disconnected from their grief. As long as it's not spiritual bypass, it's okay. There's a difference. Spiritual bypass is when we just choose to ignore something instead of allowing ourselves to feel or thinking about how we can grow. But sometimes we get to this place where we understand death and what it is. And there are still tears, perhaps, and there is still longing, but it's not the same. And once you've experienced a big loss, for the most part, it will never feel the same. It will never feel as deep. Because we understand. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel. And it is more than okay to move on. I send this message out to you today with so much love and respect and the desire to give you freedom. If you are hurting, remember that it does not own you. If you are afraid, let that go. This is the hardest thing we do. Now that said, that doesn't mean you want to get out of here fast, okay? Because you don't. If you jack around, you're just coming right back, okay? Make the best of this that you can and appreciate that every other spirit did too. Of course we want them to stay, of course. But you don't make somebody stay at a college that they don't need. You don't get your degree and then keep dicking around. You move forward. You don't stay in a college class that you know you have no chance of passing. You leave. You transfer. You start again. This is what death is, beloved. It is freedom. It is a do-over. It is a gift. Whether we on the human side of it can understand that or not is irrelevant. So understand, no spirit leaves unless it is ready. That is the truth. Let that roll around inside of your head and inside of your heart. I believe you'll find it to be true. And if you're not ready yet, that's okay. When you're ready, it will rise back up inside of you because now the seed has been planted. Until next time, beloved, namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today for this week's episode of Lessons from the Universe. If you love it, please help us attract a bigger audience, more people like you ready to continue down this path to awakening. If you love the podcast, please like, share, review, and let me know how you found me so I can find others just like you. Till next week, beloved. Namaste.